Hi guys, so we are going to start with some photos, and me and my guests are going to take a look at these photos and we're going to share them with you guys too. So basically, these are images of AI predicting what we as humans are going to look like moving down the road. So Brennan, give me your feedback. Here we
Yeah.
have 2010. This is what we look like now. And we know what we look like. 2050, we got some headphones going. I mean, what do you think of this girl?
This is how I feel when I'm walking down the street with my Beats by Dre going.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
I'm perfectly honest, like listening to EDM.
There you go. Not
Yeah.
too far off. Like one of those silent club like those.
Silent discos,
There
yeah.
you go. Silent disco happening right there.
Why does she look like
An
Zendaya?
actress.
I'm
Yeah,
not-
she looks a hybrid between. There's another young actress. It's AI generated, but there's actually a website that you can put a person's face into as like, am I real?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so,
Am I real? What a
am I
website
real
name.
or am I? Yeah, exactly. Am I real?
Okay.
But like, what the problem with that is like, a lot of women are using filters nowadays. So like, are they not real? If you're like putting.
Whoa, so we're starting the conversation with what is real. That's
well, maybe
deep, okay.
There's a deep. We're going real deep. Okay, 2100. Okay, there you go. We look like we've got some accessories.
yes.
The shape of the brain looks different. What do you think?
We're adding.
Okay.
We're adding. I like it. I'm confused though. Like, does she not wear clothes? Like, we're just robots now?
I think maybe it might enhance. We're turning cyborg.
Oh, we've heated up the world so much that you don't need clothes to stay cool anymore.
Oh.
Okay. So we're just robots. Or maybe we have air conditioners on board.
Maybe you're thinking from a more molecular level. You
Yeah.
need to stay warm, right? To wear clothes or cool to wear clothes?
I'd be totally cool if we wiped out winter in Chicago with technology.
All right,
I'm just
awesome.
doing that.
Awesome. Okay, we got 2200. Now, this girl is wearing a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
She's attractive. That's a nice thing. I mean, but there you go. She's got a lot more hardware.
She almost looks robotic.
Yes.
Right? Like, her face almost looks like it's just overlaid on machinery.
Yeah, that's
versus
true.
it being real.
Yeah, agreed. All right. 2500. This guy, what is it? Stark Enterprises. Who's the person? What's his name? Is that
Tony
Mark?
Stark?
Tony Stark. But what's his
Iron Man?
Iron Man? That's
Definitely a
good.
little more Iron Man,
Yeah,
for
agreed.
sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that's getting pretty invasive. Year 3000.
Okay.
Are you thinking about the year 3000?
I always think of that one song. I've been to the year
3000 late.
Nothing's
Oh.
changed, but we live underwater.
Oh.
And your great granddaughter is doing fine. And then I'm like, what a promiscuous thing to say coming back from time travel. That's wild.
Yeah, so 3000 is kind of scary. Star Trek-esque. One of those, the Romulans. It looks kind of Romulan-esque. No, not Romulan. What's the one with the stuff on the forehead?
Oh,
Who are the ones with the forehead?
I literally-
Klingons.
yes,
Klingons.
the Klingons, yeah.
Yes. All right, year 5000, shit's happening.
we look like we're being manufactured and then skin overlay versus
Yeah.
actual.
Yeah, I mean, that's scary. That's scary. And now we're here in the year 10,000.
Oof.
My question is, why is he wearing a suit from the year?
Yeah, when did he get a suit?
Super vintage.
I guess.
Super vintage.
And like, what's going on in the background?
Apocalypse has happened, I think.
Like everything's burning down, but also under construction at the same time.
Also under. That's right. That's right. You've got good vision. I did not see the background, but So the theme of all of these photos, I would say, is that in every year, first off, at least AI thinks we're still around, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
at least there's a
that's good.
human in whatever decrepit form that we're in, at least we're still around. So that's good. So
Yeah, we'll take that.
yes, yeah, we'll take
Or maybe
that.
it wants us to think that.
Yeah, but also I don't really care about 10,000. I don't know.
Yeah.
The year 10,000 is very like way, but I should care. So we should all care about humanity, I think.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, the theme that I'm noticing, with every progression,
Yeah.
is that we're needing more and more stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of like calls into this like aspect of human nature where even now with AI coming into like this full swing of like, all of these new advents, it kind of shows us more about us as humans rather than, kind of like what the innovation is in itself. And I'll give an example. The use of filters, right?
Yeah.
We don't think we're attractive enough. So that's why we need filters.
Yeah.
Maybe even the amount of productivity where, oh, you can just research it faster. It's like, okay, why? Because maybe we just don't feel like we're fast enough. There's so many different ways about, just using AI, even the language, right? We use ChatGPT to write an email because maybe there's a little bit of like, I'm not good enough to write that email.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that. So in some ways, innovation might just reveal more about us than it reveals about the actual technology to some degree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, so that is our topic for today, is innovation and how much it reveals more about us than it does about, just technology in itself. So anyway, guys, I just have to welcome everybody. Welcome to Alia and Co. Alia and Company. Here's Alia.
I'm Company. Nice to meet you.
So yes, I'm Alia Kizelbosh, and we here talk about complex things, and I would say AI is a pretty complex topic, and we're trying to simplify it and break it down for you guys. And so today our guest is Brennan Woodruff.
Hi.
He's pretty amazing. He's done a lot of things. He was with Uber, took him to IPO, done some fun stuff on the product side too with self-driving, self-flying. I'm going to have to ask you about that because I don't see any flying happening, and I'm sure you know of it. So we're going to talk about that. Also, at SoftBank, you were with the Vision Fund on the investment side. But really cool is that you're a founder and you have built models.
Yeah.
You've built models, and that is pretty amazing because you understand it at a very, the level where it starts, the grassroots, and that's a really important thing to understand, and on the marketing side. Yeah. But not just that, you're here at mHUB, and you're doing some pretty cool things there, which is super exciting, and you have this AI collective, which we're also going to delve into. So, Brennan, welcome so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully I can live up to that billing.
Oh, I think I'm pretty excited. I know that you will. So the first question here, because to go through all of that, that's a lot of stuff to go through. It takes a certain kind of person. You're not just walking down the street like, oh, I was at Uber, and then I was at there, and I was here, and I built up this, and now that's a lot.
Yeah.
So tell me about this process. It has to take a certain kind of wiring, I would say. Mm-hmm. So do you think that this is something that was always inherently there, or something that maybe that was like kind of part of your environment that led you to be this regimented?
Yeah. It's funny. My therapist tells me that I've already lived many lives, is the way that she put it. I think I probably paraphrased her a little bit there, but it certainly has been a lot. I think for me, if you would go back to me in college, especially my freshman year, and tell me all these things that I've done and people that I've met and places that I've been, I would have laughed you out of the room. I did not have any ambitions there. Like, I was from Southern Indiana, Evansville, if any Evansvillians are on. And I made it to the state school that my dad graduated from, and I was, just trying to make it through a freshman year. Didn't really have a lot of friends. Was overwhelmed by the big university. And, I think one of the things that I've always tried to live by is chasing the things that excite you, and seeing where the rest takes you. And so just this morning, I had a student ask me, well, how did you get where you are? How are you doing all of these things? And I think it's very much become a, looking backwards, it always feels super connected. But at the moment in time, I was just like, this sounds really cool. Let's go see what happens. You can always go back to where you've, really sown the soil a little bit and made a name for yourself. But it's very infrequent that you get opportunities that can be truly trajectory changing. Mm-hmm. And so I've always tried to kind of view life through that lens. Can't say that it's all been, great, but it's been amazing, to say the least.
And I would say that somebody that takes that kind of risk, right? Because I think a lot of times, with high school, just the curriculum, you're taught to be a factory worker.
Yeah.
College, white collar worker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times it's very hard for people to look outside of that. So it sounds like you've had kind of like a creative mind, I would say, to be able to just take a risk like that. A lot of people don't think like that.
Yeah, it's my mom's a painter, so I like to say that I got some creativity from her. I did not get the painting skills whatsoever, but it allowed me to like think of things in different ways. There were times where I thought like, man, my parents having been entrepreneurs and not having gone through some of the things I've went through, like at first I was upset by that, but then later I found that actually is to my advantage because I had to figure it out myself. And in figuring out that by myself, I was able to get those learnings and then build a foundation. But I think becoming a founder is like such a crazy outsized risk, and I don't think anybody fully understands it when you go in, because if you did, you probably wouldn't do it. And you know, it's under discussed when they don't go the right way. But I think what I find when you find most people that have been founders and have tried to bring something into the world and continue to do so, oftentimes they've wanted to do it forever and they just had to work themselves up to doing it. And so I've had some experiences and things that happened all kind of around the same time that just like really brought me to a place of honesty with myself and what I wanted to do. And, you know, fortunately I bet on myself, and I think it's taken me to some pretty interesting places.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that people don't understand the magnitude, though, of that, of being able to push yourself, you know, because I see a lot of people, there's the fear that, you know, so certainly there's something like that is anomalous about you, I have to say. I mean, I'm not trying to be, but it's true because there's a drive and there's a resilience, especially if you're somebody that did not have a mentor, so to speak, when you were young.
Yeah.
You know, and I would say because you found that path yourself, I would say entrepreneurship is a lot of also about resilience, being able to just get back up again after you've, you know, nothing's working for a lot of months and you're like, oh my gosh, this is, you know, it takes a toll. So I'm just trying to dig. Like, so tell us about you. Tell us about you as a kid. When you used to go to school, what was your favorite thing to do? Like, who were you? What kind of a kid were you?
Oh, man. I mean, it depends. I would say up until like I was 13 or 14 years old, I was always an athlete. Like, I went to a very small school in Evansville, Indiana. I was very fortunate that my grandparents were able to fund my schooling. It's 15 people a grade, so very small. Like, everybody knew everybody.
Wow.
And
did you guys get sick of each other, kind of? Like?
Oh, absolutely. Like, the girls in the class would have their own, like, I'm getting away from all the boys time, and the guys in the class would be, like, the same three people were the best at all sports, so, like, there was inherently those rivalries. And so I went from that version of myself and like being the second best athlete at the school to then when my parents kind of split, I ended up switching schools with my best friend, and that school had like 250 per grade, so going from 15 to 250.
And what grade was this?
This was my transition from 8th to 9th grade, so already like a very awkward period.
Yeah, that must have been intimidating.
Yeah, and my sports had kind of been my retreat from things. And so, you know, to go from small school where you were kind of the guy or one of the guys to then big school where like you don't even make the team, like a whole identity shift at a time where like I was grasping for anything. And my grandparents died around that time, was switching schools, but wasn't really staying close with my best friend. So to be honest, I retreated into video games, the one place where I felt like I was in control of something and I could be better than everybody else. I'm a hyper competitive person. I came up in sports and I continuously remind myself that I am competitive. And so if I get involved with something, I'm going to be competitive about it. But I somehow found a way to maintain like still being nice. So high school was a lot about like me trying to meet friends through video games and just find anyone that I could spend regular time with. And by the time I was graduating from high school, I felt like I knew everybody. But if I'm perfectly honest, like a lot of that came with partying. Yeah. Like I finally made the football team, and then that like introduced me to some people that way. And it got me out of the gamer seat and into real life. And I realized that, you know, maybe I don't control real life, but there was so much more fun and so much more depth to that game than the video games I was playing at home.
There's more dimension, certainly.
Yeah.
Although I will say that video games, I mean, what are your thoughts on esports?
Man, if they were a big thing whenever I was a gamer, I'd probably still be gaming a lot.
Really?
'Cause if I could make money playing video games, which life being a video game is a whole nother discussion I'm sure we can have, but like I love games. I love FIFA. I loved World of Warcraft. I loved all these games that were immersive but had social aspects. Like I think esports being big is a great thing. I think everybody should be able to make money off the things that they enjoy doing. And a lot of people love playing video games. So
Yeah.
like more power to them.
Yeah, no, agreed. Okay, so cool. So basically, like, and I think that that's interesting, though. That's that reality component comes in. Even just kind of drawing a parallel to what we opened with, talking about AI. It's like, yes, things are digital, but the reality is the human experience is very layered. And, like if you think about AI or any kind of like tech, it doesn't, it's just numbers, right? So it doesn't really, it's not a living thing, right? And I think that our existence, it's complicated. There's so much fear nowadays with, is AI going to take our jobs? I mean, just the Anthropic CEO, what he said was, in 5 years, white collar entry level jobs will all be gone. Basically,
Yeah.
they'll be destroyed if you think about it.
Yeah.
Which actually just creates so much uncertainty in the space. So to that, what are your thoughts? Like at least your preliminary, because we're going to delve into that. So
Yeah, I mean, it was a very heavy weight. It's funny. A couple weekends ago, my fiance and I were talking about different topics and like some of the stresses that we don't communicate to one another. And one of the things that I always have running in the back of my head is being a luminary or trying to be a thought leader in the AI space is like, there's going to be a lot of lost jobs. And I've tried when running my own company and even after that to like educate students that are coming through IU and the universities I'm involved with and working professionals and everyone that I interact with, try to educate them on the merits of this technology and why they need to be adopting. And some people don't take it as seriously as others, but I think there's a lot of really dangerous thinking out there right now that this is just another industrial revolution. And I am of this opinion that I don't think it's that. Because in every other industrial revolution, it was like one or two things that really created this burst. But those one or two things didn't do everything. And like the true promise of AI is replacing labor expense with technology expense in many cases, or enhancing labor expense with technology expense. So if every employee becomes more expensive, then they either have to compensate with growth or they're going to have to compensate with letting people go. And so that's why I try to really invest my time on helping people understand it, encouraging adoption, thinking about how they can apply it, but also providing safe spaces for people to really think about it. And, I don't want to get too far into politics at this point, but I think that it is the thing that is being both stressed importantly, but not being thought about enough. And that's a hard thing to say because there's a lot of investment going into the AI infrastructure side of this and making sure America wins. But I think there is an under discussion of like, if we win, what does the world look like, and are we prepared for the world being that way?
absolutely. And I think that that's been a big concern, and not just the world, but I think just on a very human level, if you think about it, what does that do to people and their psyche?
Yeah.
If there is so much in terms of all the manual work, you don't have to do anything. I mean, if you think about the way that we even look at education, nowadays kids are brainstorming, researching, doing all these things on ChatGPT, and I think perhaps maybe there's a gap here, right? Because people, now we have all this stuff that we don't have to do, right? Like we don't have to do the research the way that we used to. And I think that adults that are old school and maybe haven't adopted the ideas that, hey, this is here and this is a tool that we can use, think it's cheating,
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, you didn't put in the hard work, so that means it's not valuable, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, we got to skip that now because the playing field is kind of in some ways level, right? Like everyone's able to do the same amount of things. So when it comes to value, do you think on a social level, we have to change what we think is valuable?
Yeah, I'd argue even without AI that we have a crooked sense of what's valuable. I think that we're in for a very transformative period. I hopefully think that it won't be destructive, but I think if anything, AI is causing us to rethink what it means to be human. And I think that is a very forthright and necessary conversation. Some people don't have the critical thinking or coping mechanisms to be able to have that thought, but I think it's a very relevant thing. Like you were mentioning something about being real, right? Like AI isn't real. What is real? What has meaning? and it's only things that we assign meaning to. Nothing inherently has meaning other than the meaning that we assign to it, and everybody accepts and agrees to it. So I went through Landmark, which is a crazy course in personal development thing where like that's one of the main tenets is like things are only real and have meaning because you give them meaning.
So it's like a story, like an entity is a story we tell ourselves.
Yeah, it's a story. Like it gets back to startups, right?
Yeah.
Like startups only have meaning and are only real because you've convinced other people they have meaning and are real.
Right.
And so it's fascinating. So like there's some things that I think AI will be destructive for, but I think there's other things where like AI is causing us to rethink the way that things are in a way that probably should have happened prior to this.
Yeah.
And are now starting to happen. I'll take education as just like an easy low-hanging fruit. So I personally hated written tests. I think multiple choice tests are a really bad way to test acumen. And I don't think that it prepares you for after school.
Yeah.
I've always believed that public speaking and team projects and applied learning are the ways that you test these sorts of things. And people are all up in arms because students are using ChatGPT to write their essays. It's like, you don't even want to read those 12-page essays. You have your GA or your TA do it. Nothing against teachers. I love teachers. I think educators deserve to be paid more. Whole separate conversation. But like the entire educational value prop and system and how we value what's happening there is now transforming. Some of it to the bad, but also some of it to the how do we rethink what we think is important for people to know and how we communicate that and train them on that.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I think, somebody I was talking to where they were talking about, like you said, synthesis of information, right?
Yep.
How you are going to be able to test a child, right? Like it's A, B, C, D is not going to be it, right? Maybe the only thing you might learn is how process of elimination and test taking works, like because I feel like it's process of elimination. I think that if you say 50 is the answer, you got to show your work, right? Like, how are you getting there, And so I was at this conference, and so there was a professor at U of C, AI and ML, and, he was talking about education, and he mentioned that the way that he's now asking students to show their information is share the prompt.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting because, yes, that's where kind of in some ways the creativity comes in. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so funny enough, I taught AI to a lot of university courses as part of running my last company, Go Charlie, which is now kind of defunct. But we were building AI initially to be used for the first killer use case, which was programmatic SEO. So if you're unfamiliar and you're listening to this, SEO is search engine optimization. So basically creating content so when someone goes and says, what's the best hair conditioner, they land on your page and it drives sales. So AI is fantastic at this job because it's been trained on all of the internet's content. So whatever you believe about copyright put aside, like that is the killer use case because you are generating sales with this tool that was built and trained on how to create this content, right? So we would go into the classroom and actually instead of teaching people how to write essays, we constructed a user interface that allowed teachers to teach the topic through the interface. So the first step was creating a brand voice. Well, we had a whole part of our user interface that was about talk about your brand. What do you want it to be about? What are your values? What is your purpose? And then another area that's what's your product? What's the value prop of that? And so the teachers would actually have them construct the different pieces that would ultimately lead to the AI building the best possible content. And so you're teaching the curriculum through a user interface.
Right.
And it allows you to be more framework oriented than grading on like what's the end output. Because inherently some students are going to be better writers than others.
Yeah.
But now you're teaching frameworks and you're teaching ways to think about things. And that's where I think education needed to go. ChatGPT doesn't have some of those bells and whistles, although it's getting better. But I think the way that teaching is evolving in a really interesting way as a result.
Yeah, and to ChatGPT, I mean, I think that it's not an agent that kids should be using to some degree. If you're, it's going to hallucinate, right? So it's going to maybe even manipulate to some degree because, if you're 5 years old or 6 years old, you don't have the capability of fact check. So, that might be hard for you to do, So, I mean, and it should be trained on maybe information that is school appropriate information instead of like, hey, there's this, conspiracy theorist over here and it's just scraping the internet for like all this information. I feel like, so even with that, I mean, there are so many new advents that kind of need to be put into place, and it's new. I mean, so what are your thoughts on kind of where regulation is at, and then kind of where the amount of like advancement in technology? I mean, where do you think we're headed with that?
I think we're headed to an always on, always present artificial intelligence that's personalized to us. I think that's where this is all going. That's where everybody's trying to get who's going to win, whether it's the hardware, whether it's the new Meta glasses that got announced last night, any of these things. Like, it's all a combat to be the AI that you're using to do everything, and then how do you make money doing it? I would say, like, to your specific point of like the 6-year-olds like not knowing what to do with ChatGPT, like, part of that's on OpenAI for like, you need to have parental controls with technology. And there's a really rough New York Times podcast about it, about psychosis and like people committing suicide after talking to ChatGPT. And OpenAI took this very seriously, and they, the next day after this report came out, they had a sweeping set of announcements. It's very hard to monitor billions of users every day, but like they took it seriously. But then I think everybody loves to look for someone to blame, and in those scenarios, I'm like, how did your friends and family not know about this? How did, like, if your kid is 6 years old and interacting with ChatGPT, a 6-year-old can't go buy a phone, they can't go buy an iPad. Like, how are they talking to this technology? So I do think that there's like a burden of, we have to be more present in our lives. I think that's a really hard problem to solve, because we've basically minted trillions of dollars of company value on people not being present in their lives. But the AI safety problem, I think, is more of a larger question of, how do we allow parents to be more present with their kids and less worried about, can I make rent? Can I buy a house? Can I do all of these things? Do I feel safe in this neighborhood? Like, it's funny how that part of the discussion doesn't get talked about enough. The AI safety part, I think, if we have the ability to be present and like think about these things meaningfully, will solve itself, and people are working on those problems. But like, the larger issue is, are we being present enough with one another where these tools could manipulate someone into very bad results? So I'm not going to absolve the AI companies from blame here, because it's a collective thing we have to focus on. But more often than not, people are just pointing fingers just because they want someone to blame.
And actually, even they don't know who to blame to some degree. And if you think about society, I mean, you're around techies all the time. I'm as well. And in some ways, at least our knowledge base is, I mean, we have a lot more knowledge than maybe someone walking down the street that just, like somebody that is not in any technical field. And the gap is so large, and to some degree AI can be extremely intimidating, because they don't know how it works. They don't know how to protect their children from it, if you think about it. They don't even know that it's what the capabilities are. So I do want to get into something, because I listened to one of your podcasts before.
Oh God. Oh no.
It was very interesting. It was very informative. I actually learned quite a bit from that, so it was really good. But what's something that you did, I was like, this guy.
Oh dear.
Well, I think the interviewer was asking something about AI. It's like, what's your definition? And you're like, well, what do you think AI is? Which is kind of interesting, because for me as well, I mean, I'm working on this model that I'm building. When I first started, I didn't even know what it could do. Which is where, that's kind of, so what do you think about that?
There are definitely times where, like, you were just talking about someone walking down the street that maybe doesn't know about how to use AI. Sometimes I wish, like, ignorance is bliss. Like, I wish I just didn't know some of the things that I know. But it's just like it's such a fascinating topic, because you talk to the practitioners and the researchers, and they're all just like, it's a probabilistic forecasting neural network. And they say it in a way where you're supposed to know, what the hell does that mean, right?
And then you feel stupid to ask.
So like, I would always start off these trainings I would do in student courses, and I'm like, what is generative AI? And someone would be like, oh, well, it's AI that generates things. And I'm like, That's great. That's perfect. That's really all you need to think about. But then you take it a layer deeper and you get super technical, and then you have everybody saying like, that's not right. It's not Chat GTP, it's Chat GPT, and
for
all
our
this
bio
stuff.
majors.
And like everybody's getting all up in arms, and I'm like, guys, it's a friendly intern. And increasingly it's becoming a friendly coworker, and increasingly it'll become a friendly boss or, super intelligent friend in your pocket. I don't think most people need to know more than that. I think the bigger discussion is like, how are we going to solve hallucinations? How are we going to solve this, what could be a very large propaganda machine and opportunity if we're not careful? Because most students, when I talk to them, they'd be like, oh yeah, well ChatGPT said this. You see it on the internet all the time. People will say something and then they'll fact check them with ChatGPT, and I'm like, you think that's the tool to fact check them with? Like,
Yeah.
okay, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And then you start to think about it a little more, and like the whole fabric of trust starts to unravel, because it's like, well, where do we fact check? Like, is science the foundational thing that we go back to? Well, science has been proven to be wrong, or been proven to be subject to propaganda and influence, and like, so we're in these very strange times about how do we trust anyone. And I think that will be AI's greatest problem to solve, is how to create trust. Or maybe it will just destabilize trust entirely, and that's going to be a very scary place to be in. But I'm optimistic we're not headed there.
Yeah, hopefully not. You talk about hallucinations, though.
Yeah.
Will they ever go away?
So for those that don't know, hallucinations is not machines taking LSD. It's really a couple things happening there. So hallucinations, typically when you're interacting with ChatGPT is a software layer, and there's underlying models. It's increasingly complex under the software layer. But the reason that an AI model would hallucinate is really twofold. One is that it has not seen the topic that you're talking about. So like, I'm not an astrophysicist. I know nothing about astrophysicists. But if someone asks me a question about it, I might try to pause it and answer. I might take an educated guess. Well, that would be a hallucination, because I know nothing about it. But I'm going to say it with such confidence that you think that I do. So that's one type of hallucinations. They haven't seen it. And the other time, which is becoming increasingly rare, is that like, it's newer information that has not yet made its way into the model. So you may have recognized that many of these models and sources and tools are now tied to the internet. That's where they have real-time information that's being considered, rather than being frozen in time. So actually, back when ChatGPT originally came out, if you asked it questions about COVID, most of its training data was before 2020, so it wouldn't have a great response.
Those were the days.
So there's cutoff in training data. But increasingly, they're finding ways to solve that through connectivity to the internet, social media, more constant training and running models. But I do think we're going to solve hallucinations. I think we're making big strides there. I don't think it can ever fully be solved with an LLM-only architecture. I think you're going to have something a little bit different, because LLMs, for those that don't know, are probabilistic forecasting neural networks that always are going to have some level of error.
Okay, all right. So there's that. So do you think that, I don't know, it's confusing. First off, LLMs, and as in the, kind of like the essence of complexity and breaking things down. Can you just explain, at a third grade level, what an LLM is? Yeah,
so LLM stands for large language model. 3 parts there. Large means greater than 1 billion parameters. Think of parameters as ingredients in a recipe. If you were trying to make your grandma's eggplant parmesan, it's probably got 13 ingredients, maybe less if grandma was super skilled. So if you have too many ingredients and you put it in the recipe, you're going to have gobbledygook. If you don't have enough ingredients, you're not going to get the final dish that you set out to get. So the game with parameters is having the right amount of parameters for the task at hand. Think of it also as just vectors you can consider when making a decision. So large, greater than 1 billion. Language just means that it can speak in language and output language. Means that computers can talk the same way we're talking right now. And then model just means like it is a model. It's built to be used and forecast things, right? And so all 3 of those things together, it's basically taking a huge corpus of data. So let's take the whole internet, and you're asking the whole internet questions, and based on the answers, you tell the model, yes, this was a good answer, or no, this was a wrong answer. And so through that process, you then get this outstanding model that comes out. that is able to answer questions in language the way that you and I work. There's a push towards something called small language models. So think small is less than 1 billion. In some places, they think less than 10 billion parameters. But small language models, the whole purpose is that you don't need as much infrastructure, energy, and other things to run the model, and it could instead run on a device like this or something even less complex, or in many cases, like what we tried to do at my last company, a CPU versus NVIDIA's GPUs, which is a whole step change in cost to actually run
Interesting.
things.
Well, that's like probably a in-depth conversation. I
Yeah.
would like to, that's a different conversation.
We can get real deep in the technical weeds for sure.
But I do want to kind of go back to hallucinations, aka
Yeah.
mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, that's what hallucinations essentially. You know, mistakes in some ways, like you're explaining, you know, it's scraping all of the internet. There are a lot of different opinions on the internet if you think about it. Also, biases, right, come in, right? Even when you're programming something, it is still programmed by a human being, right? And if you think about it, when it comes to trustability, it's like, you know, like you said, what is real? You know, what is true and what is false? I mean, for a scientific study, one study comes out, you have like 10 other studies that say the opposite, right?
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like, you know, and then I know that there's some tools to test for bias, but like what I'm trying to understand is kind of what's the first step in making sure that it's a fair system? I mean, is there even a way to do that?
Fair is always a loaded word,
Right.
because it's a matter of perception of who determines the definition of fair. If I were to try to come up with, maybe this is a different way to answer the question that you're trying to get at, so let me know if I'm off base. But if I were to try to solve hallucinations, if that's what I really wanted to solve, I would build a global task force where I incentivize people to provide us correct answers. And I would make it in such a way that at least 3 to 5 people had to validate that each answer was in fact correct, so that one person couldn't game the system. But then you're making everyone a part of this process, which Sam Altman's been on record as saying that maybe we'll have different types of AGI, which whole other loaded term, but like maybe different countries have different worldviews, and those worldviews should be considered at the model layer, and you know what actually should adjust and should be formed, and what perspective should hold. Because you know, if you're a globalist, maybe you think that every single country has their own beliefs and they should have their own beliefs, and as long as they're not treading on other people, that should be okay. Well, we want to respect those boundaries, and their AI should reflect that. So there's a lot going on there that is under discussed, but I think incentivizing people to be participative in that process is the way that I would hope that we can solve it. We're starting to do it. Like, these AI companies are paying a lot of money to people that are very smart to help give these models the right information, but you have to imagine that there's also ways to be poisonous in such a role.
Yeah, and that's such an interesting point. So what you're saying essentially is that trust might come through almost having a human check, right? Like, you know, to have that. And if you think about it, you know, how are we navigating the world today? If you're get a quote for an attorney, you might get 10 quotes, and each attorney, you're not sure if you can really trust them or not. Like, I mean, and each one is different, but you choose one.
Well, in that situation, like, how would you figure out if you could trust them?
Yeah, I mean, I just ask more questions, ask around to see if perhaps maybe, you know, there's that reputable kind of like a profile that they have. I mean, but that's what I'm saying is that even with agents, like AI, any kind that you're using, perhaps maybe we need to adopt that kind of mentality, because they're kind of equal if you think about it. One opinion is a human opinion, one is an AI opinion, still kind of a human opinion if you think about it. But you know, maybe that's what we need to kind of like, you know, kind of process, like just the way that we look at things. Yeah.
I mean, talk about being human. I used to ask my engineer at my last company questions about certain topics, and one day he responded back to me, "Have you asked Perplexity yet?" And about jumped through the computer and smacked him. So I was like, "I'm asking you because I value you enough as a person to ask you this question." Responding that way, like the people that used to always be like, "Oh, let me Google that for you" meme. I'm like, I'm trying to be uniquely human here, and you are telling me that you are too efficient with your time to be bothered by a very uniquely human experience. So that's fine if that's the way you want to be. get
Right.
away from me.
Yeah,
'Cause I
right.
don't want that.
Yeah.
Like of course I will ask this AI system,
Yeah.
but I trust you.
Absolutely.
And I trust your expertise in this area.
Yeah.
And so that's like the whole other part of the trust discussion that falls away during this is too many people are just going to AI and they're like, I'm just going to start with AI.
Mm-hmm.
You even see it with organizational structure now. Like people are asking AI before they ask their coworkers, and it's like the whole way that anything meaningful has ever been done in the world and in history has been people working together.
Mm-hmm.
In one, man, sorry, I'm on a tie right now. So the
Go
whole
ahead.
concept of like the $1 billion one person company,
Mm-hmm.
no one wants to build that. Everybody's like, there will be a $1 billion one person company. That sounds so lonely. The whole
And
fun of
stressful.
a company is working with other people towards a shared goal.
Yeah.
Yes, to make a lot of money if you're good at it and you find a valuable thing to bring into the world. But like, I don't want to build a $1 billion company by myself. I want to build it with my friends and the people I care about, for the people I care about, and the customers that I want to deal with.
Right.
Like,
right.
that is my greatest fear with AI, is that we will stop interacting with each other. And we're already doing it with social media, although a lot of my interactions with some of my guy friends is just sending hilariously ridiculous memes to one another. So like that's a whole separate type of communication.
Yeah.
But like, at least there, like there's some communication.
Yeah.
Like we shouldn't just like offload all of our intelligence and interactions to these systems. Like that's never what they were designed for. And if you're doing that, like connect with the world, be a
Right.
little bit more present.
Yeah, but I think that that's the fear, right? Like for anybody that might just be non-technical, thinking about AI is going to take over everything, in their minds, they are thinking that AI is going to rule the world and humans might just start disappearing. Like if you think about it, there's no need for us, which kind of it's like purpose is an important thing too.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to also tie it into your experiences, being at Uber and like all of the amazing things that you've done after that, just kind of tying into like just how these innovations, I would say moving from Uber, which is innovative, to investing in AI startups and, building your own company. And then also in this ecosystem at mHUB, where you're looking at like, hard tech and all of these like just ingenious things that are coming. How has that shaped you, kind of seeing all of this innovation, and because I want to draw a parallel to how people adopt innovation, like how they're adopting it. And from your human perspective, were you fearful of it? Is it something that was intimidating? And if it wasn't, what did you do? You just jumped in and how could you kind of like give some people advice here and let them know that, hey, you should be thinking maybe like this and it could be beneficial.
So when these things first started coming out, and I wouldn't say that this is any sort of prescriptive way to think about this stuff, but when it first came out, I didn't use it a lot. Like I was building these tools and I was showing people how to use these tools for things that they do, but I wasn't using them. Like I'm a fast typer. I like the creativity of coming up with something myself. I like, the ingenuity of coming up with something that feels personalized, and AI is not so great at that because you need personal context to do it. And it wasn't until earlier this year where I dove into what I was doing at mHUB and like a whole new industry that I just had not spent a lot of time in, that I really started using these tools. And it really started amplifying. And now I use it probably 20, 30, 40 times a day. Deep research, I would say, was the breaking point for me. For those of you that don't know, deep research is a tool that effectively will go and evaluate hundreds, if not thousands, of resources across the web and come back with an answer to a question you have. So for me, I work in sort of a sales role now. And so I was like, I know that I want to do an accelerator at the intersection of AI and energy, but I'm unfamiliar with some of the big energy players that could potentially be partners for this. Can you come up with a list of 100 companies, why they would be relevant, and who I should talk to? And it did that in like 20 minutes. That's like months worth of research previous to these tools to figure this out, or years or decades of being in that industry.
Yeah.
So I was now effectively able to like target my outreach and do it. And so I think a lot of my AI adoption was, one, being able to see outsized value in its use or outsized time savings, but two was like getting over my own ego Like, I'm a good writer. I like to think that I'm affluent in my use of language. I like to think that I'm good at connecting with people and being personable, but, that doesn't mean that I don't need help, right? And so I think when you take a step back and you start to realize the potential of this technology and are able to see yourself in some of the ways that you could utilize it, the hurdle to get over to get started is a lot lower.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I think that's valuable to hear, because it is an intimidating place, especially if you haven't, So you just like kind of dipping in your toe. I mean, what would you say step one for somebody maybe for years has been, just kind of afraid? It's like, I'm going to lose my job. I mean, college majors now, if you think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're trained in something. Yes, you have the domain expertise, but AI could easily do something like that. How would you? What kind of advice would you give to somebody in that space?
Absolutely. The amount of people that I talked to where they were like, "Yeah, I tried to use it to write an email and it sucked," and I was like, "Yeah, because writing is the worst use case. You know how to write emails. You write emails every day. That's what you do. That's what you are uniquely good at.
Yeah.
Use it for the things that you hate doing.
Yeah.
Use it for the things that are going to take you an inordinate amount of time to do. Use it for the things that are very manual." Don't use it for things that require 100% accuracy. But if I were to try to get someone to utilize AI, the way that I would do it, so I have a scorecard that I went through with enterprises, and I'll walk through that in a second. But the way that I would think about it is make an hour a day where you can just ask questions to this machine. Ask whatever you want. Just like put something into the prompt box and see what you get back. And I guarantee you by the 5th day, you're going to start asking more than an hour's worth of questions. And you're going to start asking for more things than what you did on day 1. And you'll start to very quickly realize that this thing is general purpose and can do a lot of things. For instance, I'm planning like a fall foliage day with my fiance. I've not spent a lot of time in Chicago during the fall. My first stint in Chicago, I was traveling most of the fall and winter. And so it came up with an idea. I used some of the things and some of the other things I didn't use, but it was still helpful versus a Google search that was like a bunch of sponsored ad stuff.
Right.
So you can use it for all these different things. And then if you're really struggling to adopt it, go on a long walk and turn on voice mode and ask it anything. And you will be able to learn in a way that breaks your mind the first time you use it. They even have a Santa-themed one during the holidays.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Santa. Yeah, played with my nephews with that last year. But if I'm thinking about like using it for business, right? You have to. It's always got to be rooted in ROI. So what I would always start with is what are your business objectives and priorities and strategic KPIs for the year? Okay, then what are the activities that break that down and drive that? You'd be surprised how many organizations don't know the answer to that question. They don't know what activities actually drive those KPIs. They'll be like, we want to grow revenue. It's like, okay, well, how do you grow revenue? Oh, we do outreach. Okay, would adding more outreach actually drive that forward? So like getting clear on those two things is a precursor. Spoiler alert, this is why when 95% of AI projects fail comes out as a headline, it's because no one's done the pre-work. We're talking productivity gains, but no one ever measured the actual productivity of those tasks in the first place.
Right.
If you don't measure something, you can't measure the improvement of it. So starting with those two things, you then get down into, okay, what activities drive that on a quarterly basis? Okay, great. Which of those tasks is manual? And which of those is repetitive? And which can I tolerate some degree of, error? And when you get to the bottom of that food chain, that's where you start.
Right.
You implement there, and then you start to work your way up to more and more pressing things.
Right. It's like learning how to ask it questions,
Yeah.
I think, and maybe that's where kind of the creativity portion of it in terms of like a trait that, perhaps maybe if the playing field is leveled where you can get all of these manual tasks, then what are good traits to have moving down the road? What would you say is something you should not be using AI for? I mean, to keep those traits going, is like brainstorming. I was talking to my daughter this morning, and she's like, I don't use it to brainstorm, because otherwise, and I'm guilty of this. Sometimes I'll go into ChatGPT and then I'm like, okay, now I just do this on my own, and my brain gets mad at itself. It's like, you could have been done with this a while ago, So, I mean, what do you think is the right thing to do with it, and maybe not?
There's very few situations I could say don't use it for that. I think that there's more dangerous situations to use it in. Like, let's say you're in a rough relationship with someone and you're like, not, the communication's not there. I think asking an AI to try to solve that problem for you, these things are very sycophanty. They're very like, yeah, you're totally right. You're totally right. So they're going to gas you up in a way that robs you from your ability to learn and find compromise. So I would say with your romantic partner, if you're in a fight, probably don't ask the AI system what you should do.
Right.
Although they've adjusted it a little bit, and it's pretty interesting to see perspective from what some friends have showed me. But it's, I would say don't use it there. Don't use it anywhere where you have to be 100% sure of the outcome, which in most cases is pretty large. Like medical is a big thing. Like this technology is incredibly useful for having a second opinion without having to have insurance, without having to have all these other things. And in many cases, doctors are using this for their patients' information.
Yes, they
But,
are.
like, they shouldn't be feeding their patients' information into that. So that's a whole separate thing. But I think if you need 100% certainty, you probably shouldn't be relying completely on ChatGPT. It can be a sounding board, a directive, an advisor, but don't let it be the end-all, be-all. Those are two off the top of my head.
Yeah, and you know what, to be honest, after this conversation, because I've had conversations with people about AI and like, oh my God, we're going away. It sounds like there's a human component that is still there. I mean, you know, you actually do go to a medical doctor then, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you get kind of like more, you know, there's the human checks component of it. You know, kids, I think that they need to be monitored, you know, but also you can learn and you know, and help, you know, other humans, I would say, I mean, in that space. So, so interesting. Anything that you would like to add? What do you want to talk about? Like, what's bugging you about AI? I mean, not so much bugging, but what are things that you think people should know about? What are things that are kind of like, you know, gossipy that maybe you can tell us about?
Oh, wow.
What's the tea?
Yeah. I mean, so a couple things come to mind. One is that like there's so much of people trying to shove AI down people's throats. And it's the hot topic because everybody's trying to find their unique advantage, and every conference is now folding in an AI thing, and everyone is trying to make AI happen in places maybe it shouldn't happen. So my one big pet peeve there is just like, sometimes the answer can be that you don't need AI. There's a lot of places where you do. It's going to change everything, but the timeline over which it does will be different than I think what a lot of people are purveying. But I also think that many opportunities that you're trying to implement AI into probably should be uniquely human. Elon Musk, one of the greatest technologists of all time, very polarizing. Whatever you think of him, one of my favorite stories is that he tried to automate the entire Tesla factory. And he realized that there was a certain portion, I think it was like moving glass or changing some piece out for the Tesla Model S. And he realized that actually having humans in the process to do that particular task sped up production and reliability of output by like 5%, which is massive for an assembly line. And so he did that. And so like there's going to be a lot of putting AI where it probably doesn't belong. We realize that having a human in the loop actually makes a whole lot of sense. That doesn't mean that things won't transform as a result. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't use AI, but I think we're pushing it a little too hard. And then I think the second piece is that like we're kind of beating people over the head with it, but then everybody can go an inch deep and a mile wide, but very few people can go a mile deep. And one of my favorite events that we did with the AI Collective, and the AI Collective is a group that's just trying to like embed people's understanding of this technology and how it's transforming the way that we live, work, and play. And we, funny enough, this like just happened to be a coincidence. Someone canceled on us, and so we weren't able to do the event that we wanted to do. It was supposed to be about legal AI, and I said, you know what, guys, I've been wanting to do this use case-a-thon, and it's just an open mic. Whoever comes and shows up, and they get 5 minutes, and they can just talk about whatever they're using AI for. So I did a session about how I'm using AI to expedite my sales process. So every week on a Sunday, it does the next 3 weeks. It researches events that I could go to that would have potential customers, and it sends me a report of it. So that I now have the next 3 weeks worth of events that I could potentially go to, all in my inbox, all automated. I don't have to do any of the research.
Awesome.
Use deep research to find customers and like different accounts I should go after. I used voice mode to learn about why there's more hype around new nuclear than hydrogen right now from an energy perspective. And so I just showed people those. And then everybody else started to be inspired, and they came up and said, like, I've been using it to make my emails sound more concise, or I've been using it to research this illness that my mom has. And like, all of these are things that nobody knew that you could use it for.
That's pretty amazing.
And it wasn't about selling anyone's tech. It wasn't about selling the AI Collective. It wasn't about selling sponsorships. It was just about, how do we all figure out what to do with this? And I think we need more of that.
Yeah.
And I try to do it myself and inspire and teach others, but you know, there's so much money going into AI right now, and there's so much of a need for this justification of all the ROI of it, and I think it's too early to subject it to some of the ROI discussions, but like, we just need people to actually find value in using it, and that doesn't come from you trying to shove it down someone's throat.
Okay, amazing. Yeah. So how did you start this AI Collective? Is this yours or something that you're a part of? Or
So I was at the very first one in San Francisco when I was living out there at the time I was running my company. It was started by a guy named Chappie, who is just a maniac of energy. Really awesome guy, great people person, was an engineer, bodybuilder, and decided when Gen AI was taking off that he wanted to start the AI Collective. And so the AI Collective is actually a global organization. Okay. So there's chapters in all of the major cities, well, most of the major cities. We continue to grow. I think it's close to 85,000 people strong now.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And when you're running your own company, you have very little time to like assist in growing things. But when I was leaving my company, I wanted to keep one foot in AI land because I felt it was going to be equally transformative to hard tech in a way that was meaningful. And so I wanted to make sure I was staying there, keeping that interest, but also keeping that expertise and thought leadership. And so around that time, the Chicago chapter started. And so I jumped in to help lead that. And I've done now 4 events at mHUB of like big speakers. So one was, you know, a demo night for startups that were local to be able to communicate their product. One was AI in the physical world with robots and data centers. And one was the future of work and how should we all be adapting and learning, and had some incredible speakers. And what I'm probably most proud of with those events has been, it hasn't been trying to sell anybody anything. It's very much been like, I don't know what's going to happen here, but let's figure it out together. And you get the right minds in the right place, and then people love it. And I'm proud to say to this day, there's been a couple people that have been like, that was the best AI event I've been to in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Not saying that to gas myself up. It's just like that happens naturally.
But it sounds like it.
That makes me happy about the energy that went into it.
Right. And that's what I love. And actually hearing this, like, you know, just the idea of what are you using it for? I mean, it becomes more of a dialogue than okay, I need to put this face on and show up here, you know, and kind of like defend what I'm working on or whatnot, you know. Yeah. So I think that and it like kind of fosters a specific kind of community. So I love that. Okay, so before we wrap up, you know, first off, like, thank you. All of your thoughts have been amazing, and you know, certainly hearing your experience coming from, you know, just there's so many different spaces that you've been in, you know. I mean, I would say the corporate structure, the founder structure, you know, working with this collective, you know, and just even like now. Looking at like other startups, you know, in this space where it's like tangible items, you know, that are very different, and it just seems all so exciting. And it's almost kind of a form of you're educating people. You really are, you know, and like holistically, in the sense it's like that you have like a 360 view of all of these things, and I think that that's really important. Last question I want to ask you is, tell us about Uber and these flying cars that I'm not seeing.
Oh,
where are they?
Oh man, so it's funny. You know, my memory is worse than it was years ago. But when I was first leaving, when I decided to leave KPMG. Which I worked for in Chicago as my first job, and then New York, and in their deal advisory group, I was doing international deals, which is a 22-year-old telling a Fortune 500 CFO what to do was pretty incredible, but awesome. Also like ego building in a way that I probably never recovered from. But you know, it's funny that way. But so Uber at the time had just released a white paper about something called Uber Elevate. And so Uber Elevate was all about vertical takeoff and landing. So VTOL is the term for it, or the acronym for it. And so vertical takeoff and landing, if you think about helicopters, they go up and then they go over, but the blades never move. So vertical takeoff and landing was you'd go up and then the turbines would move and then you'd go forward. And so it was funny when I finally got to San Francisco for Uber, we were building a new office. And they gave you a virtual reality experience to travel into it. And so you would take an Uber Air and land right in front of the Chase Center and walk into this office.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't at Uber whenever the office finally opened halfway through the pandemic. I've since been. It's a beautiful space, but there's still no Uber Elevates. And the reason is the FAA. So if I can impart any wisdom to anyone trying to get into innovation, if you're doing it in a vacuum and not being considerate of the regulatory policies that would influence but also enable you, it's going to be very hard. Many of the greatest companies in the world of our time have been started in regulatory gray areas. Uber, kind of started in a regulatory gray area. OpenAI, fair use, regulatory gray area. So companies start in those regulatory gray areas. There is no regulatory gray area in flying.
Yeah.
It has been regulated for a long time. Helicopters have a regulatory framework. So the FAA has killed a lot of drone companies. They've also killed a lot of air transit companies. Now, Joby Aviation just bought Blade, which for those of you that don't know what Blade is, think Uber Black Car, but helicopter trips.
Ooh, okay.
Wild.
I like it.
So they bought Blade's consumer operations in New York. So you'll now be able to take a Joby from JFK to Blade.
Okay.
And so the first Uber Elevate pilots were helicopters that you could take from JFK. So you would take a black car to the helipad to Manhattan, and then a black car to your final destination. So fully luxury experience, all in one way. Blade kind of built the initial infrastructure for it. And now Joby's starting to get into it. So the conversation's changing. There's companies like Archer that went public. That was all the Uber Elevate people going into a new company. Really interesting times. Whether we'll see us flying around as consumer taxis, I think it's going to be a while before the economics start to work. But with the way that Uber Black prices are going, who knows?
I know. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that would be pretty amazing.
All the people in the suburbs wouldn't have to deal with 9094.
I know.
They could just land on
That's
top of their office.
exactly what I was thinking.
Right?
I was just that would be amazing.
It's so amazing. Why would we not go to the air?
Yeah.
That's the bigger question I have is do you know how much anger is in the world as a result of commuting by car?
Yes.
Myself included. If I had to take my fiance downtown, I'm no, we're not doing that. I'm going to take the back roads to mHUB. I'm done.
Yeah. Oh gosh, amazing. And I'm going to ask you more about that later. But thank you so much for being here. You have imparted such great wisdom. I mean, honestly, it's just people do need to kind of that bridge, those assumptions, they need to, the gap needs to be filled because I think there's a lack of understanding when it comes to it. So hopefully, guys, if you don't know, now you know. So, but thank you so much, Brennan, for being here. It was truly an honor. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.